Hi, I'm James, and this is a video to help you get started with the Advanced Audio Player plugin for Bubble from Zeroqode. Just before we jump into it, if you need any help building your app or product, feel free to reach out to our team by visiting our website at zeroqode.com. We're the largest maker of plugins for Bubble, as well as the top gold tier Bubble agency. We have almost 10 years of experience and can help you build any web, mobile, or AI product, or even help automate your business. While you're there, make sure you check out zeroqode.com/plugins. This is the full list of all the plugins we make, and there's over 800 of them, probably even more by the time you watch this. There's something there to cover pretty much everything your app could possibly need to do. For example, there's Stripe Marketplace Express for accepting payments within your app, Mapbox Maps for super customizable advanced maps functionality, AWS File Uploader, which is great for saving on Bubble hosting costs, and so many more. So make sure you check all that out as well. So let's start with an overview of the plugin. So this will allow you to play just a simple static audio file in your Bubble app, or to build a full dynamic pulling from the database audio playlist audio player. So it can be as simple or as advanced as you're wanting to build within your app. Let's take a look at a few links on the plugin page here. The first one is our live demo link. Now this will open up a pre-built Bubble app with the plugin installed. And we can see how the plugin works and behaves from a user's point of view and see the kind of capability of what the plugin can do. So we can see here we have a floating player with audio play controls, the player itself, a bunch of settings and shuffle and things you can change with playback speed. We can upload an audio track and immediately load it into the player, or there's a whole playlist of songs here that you can play directly from the database. And you can see the associated states we can show. There's an image, there's a title, an artist, the length of the track, and then workflows we can add in like favoriting and downloading. Next to that live demo button, we have the demo editor button. Now this will open up the exact same app that we were just looking at, but from the Bubble editor point of view, which is really handy for kind of reverse engineering and seeing how this is put together. We can see this is a repeating group. We can see the player is a floating group here, and what the player's settings are here in the properties panel and how it's all set up and put together. That also includes all the associated workflows, so we can see how certain actions are put together and what happens sequentially before installing this plugin, just so we can see if it works for what our app needs. I often use this as a reference while building my app and seeing how certain functionality is achieved, so I can then duplicate it and have that work in my app as well. The next link on this page is the documentation link. Now this will open up every bit of instructions and details that we need to install this plugin and have it working in our app. We can see there's a general introduction and how to install and set up the plugin, and then all the actions that you may need to install and have certain functionality within your app, with examples and details of what it looks like within the app. It's also all the exposed states that we can reference, and all the element events that we can reference as well within workflows. So again, I keep this open in a separate tab while building. It's just a great reference to make sure we're on the right track. The last thing I want to mention on this page is our support chat widget in the bottom right here. If you have any questions about this plugin before installing, while installing, troubleshooting, send us a message here. We would love to help out. Okay, let's jump over to Bubble and see how we can set this up. All right, first thing we need to do when in the Bubble editor here is install the plugin in our app. So on the left-hand panel here, click on the Plugins tab, and then in the top right, click on Add Plugins. And we're going to search for Advanced Audio Player. And this is the one here, the top one by Zeroqode. Now, there are two options here for installing this plugin. There's a one-stop purchase or there's a monthly subscription. Now, the monthly subscription is actually the cheapest and most risk-free way to try this out, as you're charged on a pro rata basis. So you're only charged for the days that you have the plugin installed and active in your app. So if I installed it today, tested it out, and then uninstalled tomorrow, I'd only be charged for 1 day. So $5 divided by 30 in this case. Very risk-free, very cheap way to test this out before committing to the larger purchase, if that's what you're wanting to do. So whichever way you go with this, install this plugin, and let's jump over to the editor. Okay, now that we have that plugin installed, if we go to our assets panel and we search for audio player, we have a new element, the audio player element. And this is what's going to be playing our audio with this plugin. So I'm going to drag that onto our canvas, and it looks like nothing right now, so we need to make some changes. First though, I'm just going to put a group onto the canvas as well, and I'll put the audio player inside that group, just so I can put some padding and spacing around it. So I'll put 20 pixels padding all the way around. And then in our audio player, I will turn off fixed width so it spans the full group. And let's see what we have to work with here with the properties. So this is where we configure everything with the audio player, starting with what file is it going to be playing. So I'm going to start with a static file first, and we'll then look at dynamic files afterwards. So I'll upload just a quick little audio file from my computer here. All right, great. We have a hi-hat loop in there. Now, while we're here, let's have a look at some of the other options and properties we have here. So this top section talks about the behavior of the audio file. We can see if we want to restart the audio when it finishes. Do we want to enable autoplay if we're playing from a list of audio, like a playlist? And do we want to enable shuffle and delay and all those sort of, the behavior of the files? You'll see as well here, under each one, there's a show documentation button, and that will just give us a little bit more information about what each option does. And this ties directly to the documentation page we just saw earlier. So moving between this and that documentation link will give you every bit of information you need here. Below the behavior area, we have the style section. So we can change the color of the player and the color of the controls, what the handle color is and the background color, and whether we want to show the play and pause buttons as part of the player, or we want to use our own custom buttons using workflows to play and pause. We can then specify the media information, the title and the artist and the artwork, or we can pull that dynamically from the database. If we have multiple players, whether it pauses these when it's playing, and then we have our standard bubble styling options. So we have an audio file in here already, and I won't change anything. And let's just see what we end up with if we press preview now. Nice. We have a simple audio play here, just with the default styling. And if I press play, we should start to hear that hi-hat loop play. Great. That's working well. All right, let's go and change a few other things. So it's always useful to know what we're playing. What I'm going to do is put a text element in the same group just underneath the audio player. And as the dynamic data of this text element, I will say audio player A's current audio name. That's referencing our audio player, which is called audio player A, and the name of the audio currently being playing. Let's hit preview and see what it looks like. There we go, hi-hat loop. So this would be useful to show an area, this is the current song being played, and that would change dynamically if the song changes. We saw here in the audio player whether we want to include the, the show the play and pause buttons. So if we turn that off, we can actually have our own buttons to control this player. Let's put on some buttons and see how that would work with some workflows. I'll call that one play, and I'll put another one in here and call this one pause. And I'm just going to group those both in a row container, and let's put some spacing between them, maybe 16 pixels. Great. While we're here, let's put some spacing between these just so they can breathe a bit, and put 8 between everything. Okay, cool. So if I select the play button, let's go and add a workflow to it. I'll click to add an action. And if I type in audio, we can see a bunch of options here of actions that we can use in our workflows, whether we want to load new audio into a player, play a player, pause a player, play the next audio in a list or the previous, play the first or last, and choose a position and playback speed and play from an index. There's lots of specifics we can use here for playing and working with the audio player. For this button though, we want to play a audio player. So when button play is clicked, play audio player A. Great. And we'll do exactly the same thing for the pause button. When button pause is clicked, pause a audio player, and we only have the one, so it's pause audio player A. Let's hit preview and see how this works. All right, I'll hit play. And pause works as well. There we go, looking good. So if we wanted to, we could now go in and disable the play and pause buttons so that the only way to control would be from our custom buttons. Nice. So this would be really useful for styling this to match your app, or if you want a specific look and feel to your audio player and have a certain style and you don't want to use the default buttons. I'll turn it back on though just for our demo. Okay, that's looking nice. So we have a static file and we can control it. We looked at some styling options. What if we want to reference audio files in our database? Maybe there's a list, a playlist, a whole library of audio in our app. So to test this out, if I go to our data tab, I've made a data type called audio. And just for our demonstration, I've just put one field, the audio file, as a file type. You can put a lot more in there. You can put fields for names, artists, images for album art, all sorts of stuff, whatever you would like there. In our app data for audio, I've just put 4 different loops, similar to what we just heard. So let's look at how we can reference those and have a bit of a playlist happening here. Inside our main group here with all our elements, underneath the buttons, I'm going to put a repeating group. There we are. I'll turn off the fit with the content so it spans the whole width. And this is going to be our songs, our 4 audio files in our database. So in the type of content for the repeating group, I will say audio. And the data source, I'll say do a search for audio. We don't need any constraints here. I've only got the 4 files and it's very simple, but if you wanted to filter this or put some constraints on, you configure that for how your app is set up. Okay, and inside each of these, I'll put a text element. And for the contents of that text element, for dynamic data, I will say the current cell's audio files file name. And that way it'll show the name of each of these files in the list as a playlist. And that could be, your song name or your artist name if you have those fields in your database. Here we go. We can see the 4 names of those loops. I haven't changed those at all. They're just the default names from when I downloaded them, but they're showing nicely. So how do we get them to play then in this audio player? Let's have a look. So we're going to add a workflow to each of these text elements, and the text element is going to be the trigger for playing each of the files. So selecting just the first one here, I'll click Add Workflow, and the action we want is play from index a audio player. And the dynamic link, we're going to say current cell's audio files URL, and that'll grab the audio file in the current cell of the repeating group. We'll grab its URL that the audio file is hosted at, and then play from that particular track in the audio player A, as we've selected here. So I'll hit play. You have a standard hi-hat loop here happening. I click drum mixture, I'll right away. And you'll notice as well that the track here is changing as each one of these is clicked, as we've set that text to be the audio player A's current audio name. So if we had, for example, the demo app we saw at the beginning, that would be where we display the currently playing track in maybe this floating player, and then this would be our repeating group of each individual track. All styled a lot nicer, of course, than our quick demo here. But that's working nicely. We have our database by fun. I'll stop playing that in case you can't hear me over the noise. We have our database songs playing. We've looking at putting a static file in as well. And we've got some custom buttons to control the playback as well here. Now, as we saw here, there's a lot more this can do. You can build out a full audio playlist player application here, including uploading audio directly to the database and then passing that through into the player with the load audio action we saw in the workflow, as well as, album art and hover states and making this look a lot nicer. So definitely have a play around with the demo app and the documentation as well for more advanced implementations. That's about it for this video. I hope this is helpful. This should be enough to get you up and running and get the plugin working within your app. If you have any questions at all, though, before installing, while installing, troubleshooting, don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to help out. Happy building.